All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, 12 o'clock, our weekly open coaching call with the Dutch mentor. Hi, I'm Walter. We're actually recording today's session, so I welcome Cheryl and Stan, the lab man who has finally moved from the basement to the upper floors with a window. Uh,
Yep.
you know, like Stan says, often the laboratory gets stuck in the basement with no windows. So congratulations.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you.
Make sure you put some sunscreen on because you might get burned sitting there,
Yep.
exposed to all that sun. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about the role of the leader in developing and fostering an environment of continuous improvement. So really about how do we set a growth mindset and what is your responsibility as the leader? It's critically important, and for two reasons. As leaders coming into organizations or people who have been there for quite some time, often get stuck into the daily, hectic workflow of what takes place, and which I often refer to as firefighting. Right, we go from problem to problem to problem. We solve them, we think, and then only to come back at the same problem again in a couple of months from now. And that is something we need to change. We need to think about things differently. We also have to learn that we, as leaders, cannot and should not be fixing all of the problems or developing this continuous growth mindset in the organization. This is something that needs to be top down, bottom up. The more people are engaged, the easier it will be to reduce the resistance to change, and of course, trust and engagement are key to performance. Janine, thank you for joining and welcome. So in today's world where things are moving rather fast, those who are not keeping up will fall behind. And that's the primary burning platform where you want to establish a growth mindset as a leader, and then really embed that into your team as soon as possible. It starts with innovation, right? We have to lead from the leading edge. Now we have to be careful that if we are new leaders come into organizations, that we don't outpace the organization, because that you fall outside of the rhythm. So it's always very, very important as a leader coming in that you take your time to go out on the Gemba, to go listen to the people, meet the key stakeholders, to get an understanding of what is the current rhythm of the organization, listen to what the current state is of each individual that works there. And as you listen to the people above you, to the side here below you, that you learn from them of what are the obstacles, what are the barriers, where are the problems, not to fix them. And again, our intention is that as soon as we know about a problem, we want to fix it. We have to resist the temptation to do that. Instead, we have to collect the information, understand the current state, and then we want to be able to create small wins. And a win is not by taking the most complicated, most complex project available and work on it for the next 8 to 10 months in order to get it across the finish line, right? Sometimes it is much better that you take something that's impactful but rather easy to do by bringing the right people around the table and execute against that. That's an example of how you can utilize, your position as a leader in the organization itself. And of course, you have to look at it this way. It is both for professional growth and development, and it is for personal growth and development. This is your time that you can show resilience in the face of change, right? You will see very quickly, no matter where you go in the organization, that change is needed, right? Transformation can be small, can be large, but it requires a leader with a vision to be able to execute upon that. If you come into an organization that you don't know and understand the current state of the current culture, and you apply your philosophy on them, it might be completely out of sync. And many of these leaders end up failing or get despondent after a while. So it is really understanding upfront that you need to find the rhythm in the organization. You need to listen carefully to see what are the problems in the organization, and then to find something that you can create a win around. And then, of course, that needs to be around, fostering a sense of purpose and engagement with the team members. So again, the leader's responsibility is not to do. The leader's responsibility is to provide a vision, is to make sure that we have the right people around the table in order to be able to address things. That's where diversity and inclusion of different mindsets and different understandings of the problem, we enrich ourselves by that, right? The last thing we want as a leader is to have people sitting around the table that are all yes men, right? If they're all bobbling their head or everything you say, I guarantee you we will not come up with the best product, right? So it's really about that building trust and engagement as a leader, that you will help yourself as you continue to build leadership capability and capacity as you are entering an organization or trying to, reinvigorate yourself in the organization to get your team, and of course, the outcome of that in healthcare would be a better experience for our patients. So how can you set the tone? Well, listen, you as the leader have to be the catalyst. Right? You cannot wait for others to do this. Your role as the leader is to deeply understand the North Star of the organization. Right? If you're a middle manager, and it doesn't make a difference from supervisor to AVP, it is not your role to set the mission, vision, values for the organization. That's done in the boardroom and the C-suite. But once they set that, it is your role as the leader to clearly understand how that applies to you in your role, in your division, in your group. And once you have that down pat, once you truly understand that and can then translate that into the language your team members understand, then you can become that catalyst. Right? You need to carry that message forward. You need to bring that with a great amount of enthusiasm. So it is about creating curiosity. Right? It is about creating this ultimate safe space where people want to come together and help innovate for the future or help solve problems at root causes, where they can feel, safe to fail fast and fail forward. It is at the end of the day, as the leader, if you don't create a psychological safety for your team members, the likelihood that they will give you any information of any pertinence is significantly reduced. Right, so you cannot spend enough time in creating that environment where people feel comfortable that they contribute to the outcomes. I always go back to the space shuttle. On January 28th, 1986, the Challenger fell out of the sky. And they went back and did a deep root cause analysis and asked themselves questions: why was that? What did we do wrong? And this came down to a simple disintegration of an O-ring connection between the main tank and the space shuttle itself. Come to find out, in all of the meetings, there were actually a couple of scientists who knew that this was a weak spot, but did not feel safe to speak up. And that is not on them. That's on the leader, right? So always know that if you have people sitting around the table, sitting on their hands and keeping them out closed, don't contribute and just bobble their heads. It is your role as the leader to get them to contribute as well. And listen, an introvert might not be comfortable speaking in a group, so then it is your role as the leader to seek them out as an individual and listen to what they have to say to see if they can contribute to whatever it is that you work on, either a problem or an opportunity. It really does make a difference. Listen, if you look at companies as Amazon, Tesla, SpaceX, today, these are leading examples on how to do things, but each one of them does it slightly different, right? It is, Tesla has figured out how to manufacture something in the most lean way possible, even better than Toyota quality management did in Japan and Toyota, right? Amazon has figured out how to get a package literally from clicking on a button within hours to your doorstep, and do this consistently well with a high level of quality. While SpaceX has figured out how to put a rocket together that sends something into orbit, and actually the rocket comes back and can be reused over and over and over, significantly reducing the expense. But all of them have a simple, premise to it. They all have a growth mindset. They all create a safe space for all of the team members to contribute to the ideas and to the innovation. And that is your role in the organization as well. It is, if you want to advance, you have to have safety, and you have to have the attitude and growth mindset connected to an attitude of fail fast, fail forward. It is perfectly fine to fail. Those teams who have never failed, or the leaders never failed, has never tried. Right? So that is really, really important. So how do you build a structure for growth itself, right? So continuous improvement can't be something else that we do. It has to be what we do, who we are. It has to become part of your DNA. And it can, the biggest problem that we have seen, especially in healthcare, is that why many organizations really struggle with this is that if you have an organization, and most of the organizations today at 40,000+ people, but if you calculate, if you find out how many of them are actually trained in Lean or Six Sigma or any variation of that, you'll find out it's less than 5%. Well, you can never have a culture of continuous improvement if you only have 5% of the organization having knowledge more than skin deep around the philosophy of continuous improvement or something that they live and breathe every single day. Again, it has to become part of the culture of the organization in order to elevate the organization at large. Sure, you have only influence over your department, your group. Well, it starts there. You can have that microcosm of the continuous improvement and leading by an example in the laboratory or MRI or performance improvement or project management. You can be that example, and hopefully you will be contagious that other people see it happen in your division, that you then have other people come and join, right? So don't wait for others to do for you, but it is really up to you to be able to go out and set the example itself. So there are some supporting things you need to have in place. You need to have some knowledge, skills, and ability. And if you don't, you need to seek help, right? You need to get that base education and knowledge and experience. That's where you have coaches and mentors and classes and education that's available to you. You need to make sure that there are resources available for your team to be able to be successful, right? That could be anything from training material to having mentorship to having room, having the materials to be successful itself. And then it is about making this real commitment to embed continuous improvement into everything that you do. So what that means that every single day your huddle or your communication has to have a component around innovation and continuous improvement. If you don't have that, it's very difficult to go to a transformational, even generational culture change and make it lasting, right? Then you will just be somebody else who does it to them rather than doing it with them. And that's really the big takeaway message is that you have to be the driver. You have to be the catalyst. You cannot be the only one doing it, right? It's your responsibility to make sure you develop other people around you on all levels of the organization to be part of that. So how do you do this? Well, every time you have a regular check-in, which is not, by the way, every month or every quarter with your employees, this has to be something on daily check-ins and weekly accountability, where a portion of your discussion has to be about continuously establishing this growth mindset and asking the question, what are you doing to make improvements on a day-to-day basis? Now, of course, we don't want to do too many things at the same time because that also leads to failure. We have to be laser focused on the improvements we're trying to drive. And the way to do that is go right back to the North Star, right? Every effort that you put into your division should be aligned to your North Star. And on the end of the day, it comes down, if you want to have sustainability, there needs to be empowerment and accountability with your team itself. So we can start something, but 70% of the things we say we're going to do, or we wish we would have done, don't ever happen to the fullest extent or have the material impact or sustainability. Why? Because our attention spans are short. We get pulled from one to another too quickly. And the key thing is we don't measure what we do. So if you want to be successful, you have to make sure that we have as many people engaged as possible, right? Everybody should be continuously informed on what is taking place. So it needs to be very visual. It is best driven from top down, bottom up, right? So your boss needs to be engaged and be just as enthusiastic about the work that you are doing. And then it is that you need to learn to measure. So as all of you have worked with me at some point in time, scorecards is the way to go, right? You need to write down, and the scorecard is for your team is a huddle board. On your huddle board, you should have at least 2 to 3 measures, preferably driving metrics that will lead you to the outcome that you seek. Of course, I encourage all of you to have personal scorecards, because this too will help with the transformational change that you are trying to drive personally or professionally. Now, part of the measurement and the empowerment is also making sure that we appropriately celebrate our successes along the way. Right? These are all tied together. We can't just push. We need to love the people that we lead. Right? We need to make sure that we celebrate the people in the way they want to be celebrated. And that's the key, right? Not how you want to celebrate, but how they find it, how we can connect that to them in a meaningful way. And that's where these intrinsic values come from. Tracking progress over a period of time, I would say daily, then weekly, then monthly, then quarterly. And only if you're in the green or blue stands for sustainability, and green means that you're performing, right? You're meeting expectations. Only if you do that for 90 to 180 days well, that you can back off of the measurement. What do we do? Well, we only measure for a couple of days, or for a couple of weeks, or a couple of months, and then we move on to the next thing. And what happens then? Well, we don't keep an eye on it. Things tend to go back to the old way of doing it because we never took the time to establish a true new normal, right? And we have to create new normals in order to have success. And by the way, a new normal is just another stepping stone to continuous improvement, right? The PDCA cycle and the growth mindset is, but yeah, listen, we want to get from patient satisfaction to 50 to 60%. We can celebrate. We shouldn't be, satisfied. Our goal, once we reach a goal, is to elevate the goal, right? And then we can have another continuous improvement cycle around that. And by doing that and selecting the right metrics with the right focus that's aligned with the North Star of your organization, you can see real outcomes. Right? It is if you don't measure it, I can promise you that 70% of the things you're trying to do is not going to happen. Right? If you do more than 3 things at the same time, you're going to be likely unsuccessful. If you take on the most difficult thing first before the team is fully engaged and involved, you're not going to be successful. Right? So these things are really, really important. So a couple action items here and then I will ask you for your feedback and your vision on this, or see what you learned from it. So for leaders, there's an intermediate step, is to start up with a really deep self-assessment. Do I have the skills, knowledge, and abilities? Do I have the experience to lead my team to develop a growth mindset? Do I lead with a growth mindset? And that is one thing, is that if you fall short, then you need to go out and seek coaching, mentorship, education, or experiences to help develop that on a sustainable level. The second thing is that you want to make sure that you do a resource check-in. Right? Before you dive in to build a house, you want to make sure that you have a good plan. Right? You need to make sure that you have the resource available to be able to build what it is that you envision. If you don't, you need to gather that first before you proceed. Right? Again, it's setting yourself up for failure. And this is the most important part as a leader, is to get regular feedback. You have to become vulnerable as a leader by asking the people around you, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? What should I do more of? And you really should do this on a 3 to 6 month basis. In a team setting, I even encourage to have a team effectiveness tool on the wall where people can indicate on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis, by moving magnets on a thermostat from 0 to 10 around to how they are feeling about the current team performance or team effectiveness. So it is, both these things, both for the leader and for the team, these are important because it allows you to make real-time adjustments. And adjustments shouldn't be reactions. Adjustments should be responses after you've validated them. So it is trust and validate before you proceed in every step of the way. So for the team, and it is to encourage participation, because again, you cannot be successful on your own, not on a sustainable basis, certainly not to create a growth mindset team or to change the culture of the organization, is to set goals, right? Again, a vision without a goal is meaningless. A vision with a goal that is not reachable is meaningless, right? So SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, is the key to success itself. It is about peer learning, right? Again, I talked about that, having diversity on your team. You want to have people from different backgrounds on your team itself who are capable of saying no and coming up with a counter argument. Of course, as the leader, the facilitator of your team, you want to listen to all aspects while you bring the team together to build this common bond and common understanding. In other words, have a unified vision that comes out of it. That does not mean that I need to be right all of the time, right? You need to be able to be teachable. And all that is based on trust. If there's no trust, you don't even bother, right? It's likely that you will be successful is not that great. As a team, we need to develop a recognition plan, right? And the growth spotlight is on the team itself. Well, if you don't accomplish things, if you don't move the needle forward, then you are not in a growth team. And I'm telling you that if you look around you, there is a lot of stagnation in healthcare specifically. And why is that? Because we're so busy running from fire to fire to fire, putting these things out rather than sitting back with the team and solve problems or root causes and thinking what is coming down the pike in 3 to 5 years. What adjustments do I need to make? And how can I be on the leading edge of leadership in order to be able to get the desirable outcomes? Right? It is that if you want to advance in your career, you can't just sit on the trailing edge and wait to implement what other people have come up with. This is a long-term commitment. There's nothing that I can say, nothing I can do to help you today to be successful. This is a commitment to make to yourself, to your team, to the organization, that you have to go on a journey. But if you follow the action steps I just outlined, as a leader, and then as a team, and then as an organization, there's absolutely no reason why you two cannot be successful, right? It is about the framework, right? People need to understand the vision and the timeline of execution. And one of the things that is critically important, the more people are engaged, the more people will become part of that growth mindset, and they will feel that this is something they do, not just something else that they have to do, right? And it's really, really important. And then of course, making sure that you have a check-in cadence. My recommendation as an early starter is always to have a cadence of accountability on a weekly basis, right? You have to check in to see and get a finger on the pulse. If we wait too long, too much time goes by. Same thing as if you are going to go into a coaching or a mentorship engagement, this needs to be done on a weekly basis, not on a monthly basis. Why? Because people forget, people lose traction, people don't take sustainable action. Right? So it is really, really important to establish that with your teams as well. It is about how you can engage your audience. You need to be believable, you need to be trustworthy, you need to come with a set of credibility. That also means that if you don't have that, bring somebody in who does. Right? You do not need to be the master at everything. You just need to have the resources available to you and to your team that they feel, they get a sense, that builds trust that you have the capability to lead the team to greener pastures, right? To a growth mindset itself. Always stay, very practical and stay the course, right? Again, it is human nature that we give up too soon. And that is a problem. And I use the example, right? Is that on December 31st, we all say this, we're going to go be healthy in the next year. We're going to go to the gym. I buy a gym membership. I go 3 times the first week, 2 times the second week, 1 time the third week. And then I might go back 3 or 4 more times for the year. But that's the truth. And that holds true in everything that we do, right? What's a slogan I used in my book, right? Just 15 minutes a day, you too, right, can be the leader you want to be, and the leader that your team will thrive under. Right? It is really, really important to make daily commitments to driving a growth mindset and continuous improvement. There you go, Stan. Happy leadership sets the foundation as a leader on how you can establish the new normals for yourself. And once you adopt these, that will lead to a growth mindset and continuous improvement. All right, with that said, I am going to stop the recording and then we'll go to questions and answers. And I welcome anybody who listens to this today. Come join us in our open weekly coaching call. You can come, it's at no cost. And there will always be a good interaction and things that we can walk away and learn.
Quick question, Walter. First of all, thank you very much. This was